Hi, this is Patricia Nunes again of Body Rhythm and Soul. Thank you for coming to our episode. Today we have with us Curt Walker and Laurie McKenzie of Dignity After Hockey. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this in Curt's hands right now. I want a little bit of background about Dignity After Hockey. You can tell us about what inspired you and tell us about what Dignity After Hockey is.
Sure, I'm more than happy to do that.
Thank you, I'd appreciate that.
You want to go way back to the beginning, or would you like to do it, just give you the overview of what Dignity After Hockey really is?
Let's do a little bit of both.
I can do that, that's no problem. You know, as a young child, a young boy, my dream was to play in the NHL. Of course, there weren't very many Americans in the NHL at that time. There were maybe 3, if that. And I loved to watch the Boston Bruins when it was Bobby Orr and Esposito and Johnny McKenzie and players that were inspiring for a young guy that wanted to play. But I started late. I started at 10 years old. So I got laughed at. I was tall and lanky. But I stayed with it because my dad played hockey at BU. So I decided to carry on and stay with it, stay focused, and I did. And I became one of the better players over time, and I went to a Bruins game one night, and my dad introduced me to the owner of the Maple Leafs and his vice president. And they were very nice guys, and I was very inspired by listening to them, and they said, well, send him to this hockey school in Canada, which is where I went. Came back and played high school hockey at Hingham High. Went to Northeastern, didn't make the varsity team. 19 out of the 20 players were full Canadians, all on scholarships.
Okay.
Yeah, so
that was the thing.
It was a good thing.
Yeah.
So I left, and probably the best thing that ever happened to me now, looking back, was it allowed me the opportunity to go after my goal, which was to play for the Maple Leafs, believe it or not.
Okay.
Excuse me. And I did. So that's kind of the Reader's Digest version. And, you know, I think the 4th or 5th American to play in the NHL at that time. There weren't any Americans, so.
Okay.
It was a challenge.
Know that. That's great.
It was a challenge. Thank you.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Good to know. All right. So tell us a little bit about what Dignity After Hockey does for other people, other players,
Sure.
other members. Are they members? Would they be considered members? Or
How it came about was, you know, with social media, with Facebook,
right?
You know, it's easy to reach out to a lot of people. And
How we met.
and believe it or not, I think Laurie, who found me on Facebook too, and it's kind of interesting how it all came together. But when players retired in the 60s and 70s and 80s, even in the early 90s, there was no big money. We played for love of the game. There was no big money at all.
So if you were playing because it was in your blood.
It was. We as players, we call it hockey's greatest era. So when I got out, and any of us got out, that was it. You went from the top
To nothing.
to wait in line for a cup of coffee.
Wow.
Yeah.
What an awakening, huh?
It was a terrible awakening,
Terrible,
and
yeah.
the transition was, it's just
They don't-
very, very
I was
difficult.
gonna say they don't like prepare you for that.
They don't prepare us for it, and when you're out, I
You're
mean,
out.
that's it. So, no health care plan, terrible pension plan, unfortunately. Alan Eagleson in '78 stole $44 million from the players.
Oh,
A lot of money
needed
at
that.
the time,
you
right?
needed that like a hole in the head.
Right.
Now, was
right.
that just the Bruins, Eagleson, or
No,
was that the whole
The whole league.
The whole
Okay.
league.
Yeah,
Okay.
he was in collusion with the owners to keep the salaries down. Plus, he was Bobby Orr's agent, and he had a few other players as well.
$4 million is a lot of money.
44.
44?
44 million.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
$44 million.
That's right. That's right.
That's a lot of money to be lost.
Especially in 1978.
Of course.
Yeah.
That's like $1 billion.
Yeah. So the pensions are now, believe it or not, guys that played in the States that receive pensions, they're paid in Canadian money. So that's my next.
I was going to say that must be a mission because.
Well,
how can
that's
they
my
do
next
that?
mission.
How can they do that?
Right. But the dignity part came because the guys were saying they didn't have health care. And as the guys aged and got a little older, they were beat up pretty good.
Yeah.
So I said, you know what? I'm going to find a way to find health care for these guys. It took me 3 years. I was contacted by a gentleman named Ben Galloway, who was an executive director with the Society for Professional Athletes.
Oh.
He called me.
good.
He told me that stand by, stay with him. He'd do the best he could to find a health care program.
A program.
3 years later, he called me. He said, Curt, you can tell all the guys now, open enrollment, here's what they need to do, here's where they need to go to navigate, fill out the forms. And it was really something that the guys in the States were very, very pleased because
Well, most definitely.
we were told to get Obamacare.
Which is not perfect.
No, it
far from
wasn't.
it.
And a lot of the guys really didn't like to hear that.
You're right.
So once Ben got the health care, I
What was
thought,
his name again?
Ben Galloway.
Let's give him his props. Thank you, Ben.
Yeah,
for
thank you,
doing
Ben.
that.
Absolutely. So
Shout out.
he was wonderful. Once we did that and were on Facebook, Mike Ditka, who most people know, a great football player in his day, had an organization called the Gridiron Greats.
Mm-hmm.
And they reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to share resources and utilize some of the resources that they had.
Nice.
Very nice. So I met with Candace Stoles, who's the president of Premier Regenerative Stem Cell in Denver. I went out there. I actually had a procedure myself. I'm pretty beat up from the game.
Yeah. How did the procedure go?
It's very interesting. I had two, one on my knee and one on my back. My back's in real bad shape. But
Sorry to hear that.
the one on my knee, you know, you're used to waking up with pain.
Yeah.
I am, chronic pain.
I have actually
Then you know.
long knees.
Yeah.
Yes.
In 42 days, my knee was completely healed.
Wow.
Completely healed. I had no issues at all.
Fantastic.
Yes, it was.
42 days.
So she said, look, if, you know, we've run 180 NFL players through our program, big name NFL players that were struggling, didn't want invasive surgery, but they did want to try and help themselves. So she said, why don't you go ahead and let the NHL players know that we have room for them. More than happy to have them, just all they have to do is get to Denver.
Wow.
No charge. And stem cell starts at $7,500. Starts.
Starts. Okay.
So I became the ambassador for the stem cell program through Premier, and it runs through Dignity After Hockey.
Okay.
But I should mention that during this time I was contacted by a woman whose dad played for the Boston Bruins, Laurie McKenzie,
Laurie McKenzie.
who reached out to me.
Okay. And again, you
And-
said it was through Facebook?
Yes, I was doing my own research about brain injuries and concussion, as my dad was a player.
I was going to say, let's show your dad's name out.
Johnny Pye McKenzie,
He won.
Who everyone knows.
and
He won two.
2 Stanley Cups with the Bruins
70
in 70 and 72.
72.
He
Okay.
played with Orr and Esposito. And
Oh, the big names.
yes. But I was doing, you know, he's 79 now, and he was known as a fighter, feisty, and this was
Feisty, okay,
this was before helmets.
Okay.
And I started doing research when the movie Concussion came out, and all you heard about was
I
that
remember the movie, yeah.
NFL players and the concussion. But what about the hockey players who didn't wear helmets?
Didn't have helmets.
Back in my dad's day and Curt's time.
Yeah.
That's right.
So I was doing research, and Dignity After Hockey came up, and his Facebook page said, if anyone has any questions, call him up. So I called him up, and boom, he called me back right away, and just has been helping me ever since.
Ever since.
He
And
has a giant heart.
And how's your dad doing now?
He's doing all right, but he's getting up there, and
79.
Yeah.
Plus, like you said, they played without helmets.
right.
And that was he played against some really brutal players.
He sure did. He sure did.
I mean, they were not known for their
right.
tenderness, let's say.
And yes, and the whole thing was, you watch the game now, and the fights, they're wearing helmets. It's not as extensive as it was back then.
Not even close.
So,
not even close.
No.
so Curt has been helping me. He's been tremendous.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
I do want to ask, I do want to let the public know that it is a nonprofit. You are a 501c3.
That's right.
You're a nonprofit organization. Is there a place that they can donate, or why don't you let everybody know where they could
Sure.
donate?
What we've done is dignityafterhockey.com,
Okay.
and you can navigate right to where it says donate, and you can read a little bit about how it began, how it started, some of the things that we're involved in now, what we're going to do. We had a great friend in Paul Cookson out of Toronto who runs a company called Ad Army Group, and he was responsible for doing the website for us.
Oh, nice.
At no charge, which was absolutely great.
You have to have a little bit of help.
Exactly. And because of him, Laurie and I were able to really get the word out all across the world, really.
Good.
And as Laurie said, I didn't wear a helmet. Most of us didn't back in the day. And what people don't realize is in football, there's a whistle, boom. There's contact, a whistle, and stops. But in hockey, it's constant.
Yeah.
It's constant banging, constant. I know I've had probably at least 7 concussions, and we do now currently have a class action lawsuit
Do you?
against the NHL. Sure.
Wow.
Yeah. We would take a headshot, get to the bench, sit down.
And then before you knew it, you're back in.
Well, the trainer would come by and say, "Take 5, smelling salts. How many fingers?" Back on the ice, and to be honest with you,
That wasn't.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
Stitches right there on the bench at the time. You
I don't remember. And
It was, yeah.
you're right. And there was no medical. We didn't have.
Right, you couldn't just go to the doctor afterwards.
Well, no. And the
wasn't-
peer pressure to get back in the game.
Was
Yeah. If you went to the locker room, you were,
you were a sissy.
you were.
Really?
You
I
were.
didn't even realize that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's your career.
A lot of
That's
lot
your
of-
job.
lot of peer pressure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's really, when I got the health care for the guys, it was the first time in 99 years. 99 years that the guys had the opportunity to finally compare their premiums, plans, coverage.
Finally able to have coverage. Just
Yeah.
having coverage must have been such a relief.
I think a lot of guys in the States were very, very pleased with that.
I'm sure.
They were.
I couldn't picture them not being pleased.
No. And now we have, there's a number of guys that are reaching out that want to avoid invasive surgery, don't want to get cut open. And with stem cell, thanks to Candace and Premier, there's no downside to this. You walk in and walk out.
Well, that's
It's your
good.
own cells. They centrifuge them. They take good cells, centrifuge them, inject them. And,
Back into you,
we're even helping Mitch Wilson, who has Lou Gehrig's disease. And it's been tremendous for him.
Also, I do want to ask who your board members are of Dignity After Hockey?
We have an interesting group
Okay.
of board members. We really do. You know, we have, of course, Laurie, who's the secretary treasurer.
Nice.
And because she's going to have to jump in and help me because my short-term memory due to concussions is bad. But we have Tim Bonham, and Tim is the keyboard player for the Beach Boys.
Really?
He's a Canadian hockey fan, yeah.
Oh.
So we have Tim. We have Sally Roof out of New Hampshire, who is a wonderful lady that does so much for not only hockey players, but for veterans. Just a super individual.
Nice.
And as we continue down, you know, Paul Cookson, who does our website,
Yep.
has just been tremendous. Mark Lewis, who is on the board with Gridiron Greats, is involved. Candace Stoles from Premier is involved. We have Rick Mulhern, former player
Okay.
for the Atlanta Flames and the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Nice.
We have,
Ron.
what's that?
Ron Greschner.
That's right, Ron Greschner, who was the captain of the New York Rangers for 10 years,
Okay, wow.
is involved.
So you've got quite a bit of people.
We do, and good people.
Good
and
people, yeah.
and the good thing is if when you go to the donate page on Dignity After Hockey, Laurie was able to put some incentives in. So if people donate, and I'll let you tell them about the Bruins because I'm sure there's a lot of Bruin fans that are watching this, but.
Jeez, I don't remember what the.
Yeah.
I think it starts at 500 on the website, doesn't it?
No, if they donate, well, they can donate any amount. You can start at 25 and go all the way up. 500 would get anybody the opportunity to go to a Bruins game, and Laurie would be their guest.
Oh, okay.
If they donate $1,000, they get 4 tickets to any of the Beach Boys concert,
Nice.
backstage passes, meet and greet.
We have
You
a
know.
signed Gibson guitar
Yes.
from Tim Bonham.
Yes, signed by all the Beach Boys, which is, you know, somewhat of an incentive.
A game with you.
Oh yeah,
in
you had to mention
Toronto.
that. There is one if they donate. I'm not quite sure the amount because I don't want to overstate it. But
Right.
you get to go to a game with me and Toronto Maple Leafs at Air Canada Centre, and you get to go up to the alumni box and meet whatever players are in
That
there.
are there at the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's a lot of incentives. We are going to have some auction items upcoming. So there's a lot of good things that we're trying to do to
Yeah.
raise money to help guys that unfortunately were heroes of the game.
Yeah.
That people love to see and watch that now they can't afford.
They can't afford
And to
Medical.
raise awareness overall.
Basically, it is.
general
That's right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
As far as anything that the NHL has to offer, whether it be help with their plans, medical, any questions, Curt responds to every email right away.
Well, that's good. That's good to know.
And we all do, but he
Yeah.
is. This
It's
is
a group effort, and trust me, I
He is the founder.
I couldn't do it without her.
and your other board members too, I'm sure.
And Paul, of course. So,
Yeah.
you know, it really is a group effort, and the awareness, like Laurie said, is really huge.
Well, also too, I got to say about social media, it has its faults. Don't get me wrong, but without the social media, Facebooks and
Twitter,
Twitter, Instagram,
yeah.
all those
right?
social medias now, it's amazing the amount of people that you can converse with in a day.
Unbelievable.
It's amazing. We met ourselves, Laurie and I met
Really?
on Facebook. You
Absolutely,
You met
yes.
her.
Oh, I got a phone call, and it was FaceTime, and I
didn't realize it was FaceTime.
I knew who she was, certainly, and I thought, oh boy, how do I look?
Right.
You know, and no, but that's how it all began, and obviously, you know, it's been tremendous. It really
Yeah,
has.
it
It's
is.
been great.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of bad that can be said about social media and Facebook and stuff, but it does a lot of good too. And
It does.
We're BigEzyEntertainment, having you here. But what we have done, we've had community shows the last 4 years in a row. We had 4 community talent extravaganzas and in the community. And so we're also nonprofit. And we get our word out through social media too, just like you.
Yeah, it's done so much and so much good.
Yeah, it has.
For a lot of causes.
And we're learning every day about there's so much, out there with the social media that we can do that we're just beginning.
The edge of, yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, let me just check my questions.
Sure.
So you have PayPal?
Yes, we do.
On your website?
Yeah.
Want to say the website again?
The website is dignityafterhockey.com.
Spelt as it sounds.
Pardon me?
Spelt as it sounds.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
It's not spelled funny like Big Easy. It's spelled
No.
BIGEZY.
No.
I make
Right.
everybody crazy with that.
No.
But,
No.
and you're Curt Walker.
That's right.
And Laurie McKenzie.
Correct.
And they could probably look you up on Facebook themselves.
They can. We, I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but we're all over Facebook. Obviously, as a professional athlete, things just appear, and I had no idea. At my age, I'm probably not the most, I get by, but I'm not the best literate in terms of the technology we have today.
Right.
I do my best to try. But one day someone said, pull this up, and I did, and I looked and I went, how did all that information about me get there? I have no idea.
There were probably pages and pages, I'm sure.
And that's a good point, Curt, where especially the older players who don't even have a computer.
Right.
Or
There's
they're
many.
living in a rural place in Canada and don't know the new especially people, companies are going paperless all the time.
Oh, yes, they are.
So I think a lot of the players are missing out on a lot of information.
That's unfortunate.
And that's a great point. There are some of the older players that don't use this technology.
Social media, yeah.
And they don't send the information like they used to via the mail.
No, snail mail is hardly used anymore.
Yeah, so, part of what I try and do is get the word not only through social media to the guys, but everybody, most of the guys, they have chapter presidents and they have meetings and they talk.
The alumni, the NHL.
That's right, the alumni. Yeah.
And I do have to say that even though somebody might not be on social media themselves, they must have some relative somewhere down the line that might know of somebody. And if they're looking and they know that they had an uncle or somebody that played hockey, and they could hook you up with this organization, they can probably find the address on the website to write you a letter, even if that's the only way they could.
I put my phone number. I'm very
Or they could
accessible.
call you and get the address from you personally.
Yeah, and I've received several calls from guys that aren't on that called me, and they needed help. And as we continue, I think we've had nine guys go through since I became, I guess, the ambassador, if you will. And we're booked up January, February, March, and April right now.
Good.
So it's a very, very positive, needed
program.
Program,
yeah. It's sorely underrated for sure, definitely. Out of necessity, I would say that you created this.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Somebody had to do it, and I...
Might as well be you.
might as well be, right? So it was, but, without Laurie and without Paul, I really, I'd be dead in the water.
Yeah.
So it continues to grow. It will continue to grow.
And it will continue, yeah.
That's right. So we're...
With things like this, interviews, and now if we can get you nationwide, that'll be good.
Right. Right.
We have players from all over the world contact
That's
us.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
So it's a very positive thing, and I will mention one thing. recently, all the chapter NHL alumni presidents received a letter from the NHL alumni indicating that Dignity After Hockey is providing stem cell and healthcare, but more importantly, the stem cell
Right.
for guys that have lingering injuries that don't want invasive surgery.
Invasive surgery.
So that letter went to each chapter president, who in turn passed it out to his
Okay.
alumni.
Well, good. And unfortunately, we're going to have to pretty much end it here.
Okay.
I do want to thank both of you for coming all the,
Thank you for
all the
having
way
us.
you traveled.
All the way from Atlanta.
Atlanta,
There you go.
Georgia. And you're not that far away.
No, I'm on the North Shore.
But
Wilmington.
still,
Yeah.
you still traveled to get here to be with us, and we appreciate it.
We
And,
appreciate it as well. Thank
again,
you.
Dignity After Hockey.
DignityAfterHockey.com.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
So again, Laurie McKenzie and Curt Walker.
Thank
and
you.
I'm Patricia Nunes, and that's it for Body Rhythm and Soul.